Welcome back to Houston Newsmakers. I'm with Alexandra Mealer, and we are talking about her candidacy for Harris County Judge. Let's talk about the polls right now. I've got a couple of them. Hobby School of Public Affairs at U of H, in partnership with Texas Southern, they had a poll that was back in September, showed a 10-point advantage. And that, of course, was among likely voters. But the thing with that is that because its sample size is a pretty big margin of error. One of the more recent polls came out last week by the Defend Texas Liberty PAC that has you up by 4 percentage points over Judge Hidalgo. The caveat there is that this is done by a pro-GOP organization. So what do you take any stock in those polls? Does it give you any sense of encouragement? What do you think about those?
No, I think what most people know is this is just a key battleground race. So this summer, when there was a larger sample size done by Mark Jones and Hobby, had us in a dead heat as well.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
And so what we've been seeing and looking is that it's just a very tight race. So I haven't seen anything outside of a margin of error in a poll to date from either side.
The one thing about Defend Texas poll, one of the things they showed in their poll was that abortion was #1, followed by inflation, then border. So do you read that as anything? No. I mean, it doesn't really relate to the
Well, and I don't govern by polls, and that's one of the fun things is, my messaging since I launched in November, Lena Hidalgo didn't even have public safety as a key priority last November. I took out this huge ad, it was an editorial in the Chronicle, saying with these policies in place, we're going to be known as the murder capital. And unfortunately, that was sadly prophetic in February, where not even population adjusted, we had more homicides than any other city. But I only look so much stock. What I like to see is that all the polls you stated, the one that was the smaller, had a margin of error of almost 10%, is that these polls are all saying tight race. So we're 30 days out, and it's going to be who can execute a ground game very well. I'm confident on that, especially with every law enforcement organization behind me. That's been really key for helping me get the word out.
What about partisanship? The challenge of, do you think you can be a fresh face about trying to make a difference? Because right now, Commissioner's Court, so many different decisions, 3-2, 3-2, 3-2.
Unprecedented for that. So that's something that's different, and I think really defines Hidalgo's tenure here as county judge is divisive leadership. That's been one of the points that every time you're constantly weighing into these national and even international issues, there's not a Republican Lena can pick up the phone and have a conversation with. I've spent a lot of time talking to Democrats in the city, obviously not in terms of public support, but you can ask around that people know that I am accessible and willing to discuss. And it's important that you can be able to, because even flood control is a great example. Once in office, I want to have bipartisan delegations at the state level and federal. And so we know, hey, these are the grant monies to target. The state has a $300 million water development fund we haven't received any funding for. Thankfully, we just got money in from HUD. But those are where I really look to Ed Emmett's example, where he had relationships on both sides. And he was a very different way that he governed than Lena. You did not see him weighing into all of these issues. And he was very focused on being an advocate for Harris County first. And so I take very seriously this responsibility that when you're county judge, you have to represent all of Harris County, not just the part that voted for you, and only talk to that, because you really need to figure out how do you mobilize these important, this is a very moderate, purple, however you want to see it, county. I've never believed that it was as progressive as Lena's policies, and it's not also a hard right extreme. I think people here in Harris County want reasonable, good government. And at local, that's why I was attracted to it, because it's not partisanship. It's who can operate assets efficiently.
So would you put yourself in the category of being a moderate Republican, conservative Republican, Trump Republican? Or how would you describe yourself, or do you?
No, so that's the part where I don't. I got beat up in my primary for not being, having this big political history. And I think that's the problem, is that you try to go and define people. I don't look to other politicians for inspiration.
Do you think people want to know when you come out, because you're new, what kind of political leanings you have, just so they're not surprised one way or the other?
Well, no, and I'd say obviously conservative. I have a big support towards liberty. I think that government needs to do a few things and do it well. But I've also been running a primary for over a year, very publicly. And you can see where my focus is. I want to talk about issues in Harris County, because in this role, if you're not talking about Harris County, who is? Right now, my opponent, Lena's race, you could insert U.S. Senate. She'd be running the exact same attack ads again. There's nothing personal about Harris County. And why I ran is I am raising my kids here. And the issues that I wanted to know about, can kids walk down the street in Harris County? Every kid should have that right. People are changing their daily behavior here in Harris County, thinking about when they go to the grocery store, making all of these just basic daily life. And that's what got me excited, because I always liked, I have friends that live all over the world, that they have to be more on guard, alert. Same thing when you're overseas, there's a different alert level. And once you're starting to do that same sort of behavior, to walk your dog at night, that is a profound loss of liberty.